If you're like me, you're still wrapping presents, and don't worry, I've got you covered. Here's some great ideas for some last-minute wrapping hacks. Welcome to White Sparrow Living. I'm Wendy, and I'm so happy you're here. I'm sure you've all seen these fabric cubes at the Dollar Tree, and I have quite a few of them, but I'm going to take 2 of these, and this is a really cool way to wrap a present and at the same time give a couple of functional organizing bins to the receiver. Now this gift is going to be for our daughter's boyfriend, but I know my daughter can use these because she's always needing storage solutions, so this is a perfect way to take advantage of the wrapping as part of the gift itself. So I'm just gonna build both of the cubes and then put my goodies inside, and then add a little tissue paper, put the other box right on top of it, and then I'm gonna take some Dollar Tree buffalo check ribbon and wrap that around and tie a sweet little bow at the top. And then I'm gonna write my to and from on a little cardstock tag and tie that to the handle on the front of the cube. Now for this next hack, I'm going to take some wrapping paper, and you want to cut it down so that the front part or the top part is not going to pass the edge of the gift that you're wrapping. It's just going to go a little bit below, and then the bottom piece you're going to fold over and go about 3/4 of the way up, and then add a little piece of Scotch tape just to keep it in place. And then on the sides, I'm going to pull in those side pieces, and I want it to line up with the edge of whatever my box is. And then I just take my fingernail and crease it down the edge. And then once I get the one going against the gift down, I'm going to do the diagonal piece. And then on the top, I'm going to do the exact same thing by making a crease on the top of my gift on that paper. And then that'll tell me where to fold my diagonal piece. And I'm going to do that on both sides. And then once I get both sides done, I'm going to fold over those diagonal pieces and use as much Scotch tape as you think you need. I use a lot all the time so that it stays snug as a bug in a rug. But I'm going to flip those pieces over, fold it down, tape it, and then fold the others. And then once you get to the bottom, I'm just going to fold those sides in and fold the bottom flap up and tape it, and then fold the top flap over it. And I always fold my edges down so that it has a clean edge. You see what I did there? And then I'll tape that to keep it in place. And so now I have all these sweet pockets, and so I'm going to take some greenery. I just have some scrap Christmas greenery. I'm going to add a pretty Dollar Tree poinsettia in this beautiful green. I added a little black and white gingham perky bow, and then put it all together with a chenille stem, and I'll tuck that into one of those pockets. So through the year, charitable organizations always send the best perky prizes, and they always send Christmas cards. So I keep these. I mean, they're not great quality usually, but they're really useful, and you can use these as gift tags. I like to keep the envelopes with each of the cards, so I'll just tuck it into the flap of the envelope so that they stay together, and then I just put them in a bin so that I can use them whenever I need to. But I thought these 2 were so pretty and vintage looking, so I'm going to use that and just leave it without the envelope and tuck it inside for this present for Cadence. And I wrote a little note in there, but you do want to read what it says inside, because this one is from the Veterans Association. So it says, "Thank you for your service." So make sure whatever it says is appropriate, but you could also cut off just the picture part and write on the back of that and tuck it into the pocket, and now you've got this beautiful gift. And I didn't even have to spend any money on the card, and I used scraps for the prettiness. So I really love how this one turned out, and I love thinking outside of the box, or in this case, outside of the bells. I'm going to take 2 Dollar Tree bowls. These are plastic, and then I'm going to take a little bit of adhesive vinyl, a little scrap piece, and then I just got something round to make a circle, and this was about the right size, you know, so I just did 5 circles, and I'm going to cut these out, but then at the bottom I'm going to make a line, and this happens to be some Cricut adhesive vinyl, and it's removable, so that helps too. And so you can use these bowls later too, but I'm going to use the grid that's on the back to make those lines and just eyeball them. And then I'm going to add some tissue paper and tuck that into one of the bowls, and then put the gift inside, and then using the adhesive vinyl as tape, I'm going to put it on the top bowl and then let that line piece go around the little notch and then down onto the bottom, and that's going to keep them together. And again, it's removable, so once we're done with the present and Carson opens his little bell, he'll be able to have cereal in these bowls too. So once I get all of my little pieces on there, I'm going to take some buffalo check ribbon from the Dollar Tree and make a perky bow to go on the top. And I'm just going to show you guys this so you don't have to go to another video to find a bow tutorial. I'm just going to fold this over a few times, however many loops you want on each side. And then I'm going to find the middle by folding it in half and then cut a little snip on each side. And then I'm going to kind of squish it in the middle and then take a chenille stem and wrap that around, and then I'll foof out my loops. And then the extra chenille stem, I'm just going to take some Scotch tape. I'll spread those apart and use the Scotch tape to keep it on top of the bowl. And then I'll cut off the excess chenille stem. I leave it on at the beginning just in case I need it for something. So now I'm going to take a couple of cardstock stars. These are pre-made and somebody had gifted them to me. And so I used the black ones, and I did 2 separate ones and used my white paint pen to write the to and from on there, and then took some string and tied it to the bow and let them hang at an angle. So wrapping a bunch of presents at Christmas can get a little expensive if you're having to buy ribbon. So another option would be to use some of Dollar Tree's mesh tubing. Just one package can go a long way. And here I'm going to make the Star of Bethlehem. So I'm going to go 1 time around vertically, and then I'll go back around 2 times with a little angle on those. And then I'm going to tie it in the back. I ended up cutting the excess, and I shouldn't have done that because I'm going to go again the same way, 1 in the middle and then 2 diagonals on each side going horizontally, and that'll be the cross beams. So when I was finished on the back with the horizontal ones, I could have tied that to the extra from the vertical ones. You see what I'm saying? Then to keep it in place, I'm going to take another little piece of tubing where they intersect to make sure that they stay in place. And then another idea to make your packages look really pretty and high-end and stylish is to add ornaments to your presents. So I'm going to take this star from Dollar Tree, and it has 2 sides. I'm going to cut it in half and then just use the top side. And then with that extra mesh, I'm going to tie it onto the package in the middle to keep it in place. So on this one, I'm not going to put a tag at all, and I'm just going to write it right onto the package with my Sharpie. And this is for my grandnephews, Michael and Gabriel, our twin archangels from Aunt Wee Wee and Uncle Mike. Now, if you have something that's in the shape of a cylinder, like this blanket that came this way, I'm going to take some wrapping paper and just wrap it around, but I'm not going to cut it down. I'm going to let the ends just be the size or the length of the wrapping paper itself. And then I'm just going to close that up in the middle. And then to make it super fun, I'm going to take some cellophane and cut off the end. This is actually a Dollar Tree cellophane bag. So I cut off the closed part at the end, and then I'm going to put my little tube right inside of there and then fold it around so it's nice and tight and tape that down as well. And then I'm going to take the two sides and kind of crunch in at the ends so that it becomes a little candy of some sort. And then I'm going to take some deco mesh and some mesh tubing in red and white, and I'll just tie those ends up. And what I really like about the mesh is that it just kind of crunches up and gets all festive and fun and looks like some sort of hard candy. So this next hack has been around since probably the beginning of YouTube, but it's gone really viral lately, so I wanted to show you guys in case you haven't seen it. But if you ever find yourself without enough wrapping paper, or you accidentally cut a piece too small, you can always turn this diagonally, and as long as you are able to cover the four corners of your box, you'll be able to have enough with that short piece. Just tape those corners down onto your box, and then on the ends, again, I'm going to crease with my fingernail just to make it a little easier, and then I'm going to crunch in those side pieces and line up those creases that I made with the edges of the box, and then tape it down, and then again do it on the other side. And you can see here what I'm doing. Now, I did try this first with some other wrapping paper, the red and white striped with the polka dots, but that paper is a little bit thicker and it was harder to do. So this is Dollar Tree, or it could be Walmart. No, this is Dollar Tree wrapping paper. So it was a lot easier the thinner that your paper is. And then to embellish the present, I'm going to take some Dollar Tree sheer ribbon and just go around my box vertically and then make a sweet little bow. And then again, I'm going to add another ornament from the Dollar Tree because we've got, snowflake wrapping paper, and I thought it looked so pretty with the ornament snowflake. But another idea for your tags, instead of getting an actual tag, you can write your to and from on the ribbon itself. Now, this is sheer ribbon, so I did have to put a little sticky underneath when I wrote with my Sharpie so that it didn't go through to my package. So I wanted to show you this present that I got for a couple of our littles, but it's this Holy Communion set that is out of wood. It's so adorable. You have the little hosts in here. I used to play communion with those little Necco candies. So when I saw this set, I was just dying. It has the cross and the chalice, and I think it's just so adorable. I'll have this linked in the description box below. But I just want to show you some things that I learned from my grandma and my mom. So one thing is, when you're wrapping a present, the sides always seem to be an issue because if there's too much, you have to, cut it off, or it's all bulky. So you only have to go 3/4 of the way up on any side of whatever box you're wrapping. Also, I think it makes a huge difference. It's such a little thing, but if you pinch the corners of all of your boxes, that crease gives it a crisp, clean edge and makes it look professionally wrapped. And then again, to give it that professionally wrapped look, I always fold in that raw edge at the end. Now this one was the edge of the paper itself, so it was perfectly cut, but just to make it look even better, I fold that under before I tape it down. Now, I always remember as a kid when we were wrapping Christmas presents, we would sit on the floor. So my mom always folded one end first, and then before even taping it, she just got it to the general vicinity of where those folds are going to be, and then turned it over and then held it between her knees when she was sitting on the floor, and then would do the other side and fold it up just like you see me doing here. And then this is the side that I'm going to be taping down. And then once this side's done, we'll flip it over and do the other side. So now to embellish this one, I'm going to take a Dollar Tree furry wreath ornament, and I think these are so pretty, and I just made little candle holder rings with these in my last video. So what I'm going to do is cut open the ribbon holder for the ornament, and then I'll use that to tie a piece of black and white gingham ribbon from the Dollar Tree, and then tie it in a knot and double that over, and that's going to go onto the back. And then I'll put some more on all four corners of my wreath and then attach them to the back of my package. Now, I didn't cut mine quite long enough, so I had to tape some of it down, but you could do this with jute twine on craft paper or use some baking twine. The possibilities are endless. So it's always a challenge to wrap little things, and you see here I have a crown of thorns ring and then a sacred heart necklace, and they're so little, they're so pretty, but they're so little, and I want to make it a little bit bigger presentation. So again, in keeping with that functional wrapping where it's a gift within a gift, I'm going to get these Dollar Tree nesting plastic bowls. I'm going to put that in a bag and then stick it into the smallest one and then re-nest them by putting the lids back on and then putting them inside of each other. And now my daughter is going to have a little set of mixing bowls. And then to make it even cuter than that, to wrap this, I'm also going to take a baking tin and then a couple of Dollar Tree snowflake dish towels and some wooden spoons and then a snowflake ornament for embellishing. I'm going to fold one of those towels up and put that at the bottom of the baking dish and then wrap my little bowls with the other towel, and that's going to kind of make it into a little, I don't know, a cake or something. And then I'll take some gray and white baking twine and then tie that down into the baking tin. And then I'm going to take the excess baking twine and tie in my wooden spoons. But you see the theme here, and I think it's so cutie patootie. And then once I tie my spoons on, I'll take the excess twine from that and attach my snowflake and then pop in some greenery just to make it super cutie patootie. So while I was editing this video, our youngest daughter sent me a picture of a gift that she did for one of Taylor's family members, and I thought this was so adorable and such a cute idea. So I thought I'd add it just in case you guys wanted to do this too. She just took some candy and some lottery tickets, attached those to some dowels, and then put a half styrofoam ball at the bottom of a popcorn bowl, and then covered that with some tissue paper and then poked those dowels into that styrofoam. And I think this is so adorable. She got it from her mama, but I wish she would have gotten that for me. Thank you, Pinterest, for all of your wonderful ideas. So if you need to wrap a plushie or a stuffed animal or something that is not easily wrappable, you can make your own bag, and all I'm going to do is figure out how wide I need my bag to be, And then I'm going to fold it over into thirds and let it meet in the middle there. Of course, I'm going to fold over that edge so that it's nice and clean, and then tape that closed. And then at the bottom, I'm going to fold it up and make another crease. And then I'm going to open it up and push in those two sides and make two little triangles. Again, crease it all together so that it's nice and crisp. And then I'm going to take the bottom flap and fold that over so that it meets at that line in the middle that we just made. And then I'll do the same thing with the top and then tape that bottom as well. And now we have a little bag. And then I'm going to add some additional tape just to give it some security. Now, of course, my little Virgin Mary is not very heavy, so you wouldn't want to put anything too terribly heavy in there. But I'm just going to pop her into it, and then I'll fold over that top flap and then cut it down because it's way too long. And then I'm going to fold over about halfway, and then I'll fold it over again onto the back side, and then fold that raw edge down to give it again another clean edge. And then I'll tape that down, and then we've got a flap on the front side, but I don't want to see any tape there. So to close it up, I'm going to take a hole punch and then just pop a couple holes at the top. And that's another reason why we folded it over twice, so that we would give it some extra stability, because this is that really thin wrapping paper. And then I took some Dollar Tree ribbon, and I'm just going to pop it through those holes and then make a sweet little bow in the front. And again, you can use small little charms or ornaments to embellish it, but I'm going to use these little tags, these snowman tags, and write my to and from on the back of it and attach it to the bow in the front. Now, speaking of bows, one thing I always do every year is I collect all of the ones that have been attached to our gifts, and sometimes people will want to throw them away. I never let anybody throw their bows away. You know, the icky ones are fine to go, but the nice ones that can be used again, it takes a little work, but I kind of have a thing for undoing knots. I don't know why. Kind of like with chains too that get all tangled up. I love undoing them, but I'm going to take my ribbons and pull them apart and get the knots out. But then I take my flat iron and I can just go right along the ribbon and put it on a lower heat, but just enough so that it gets all the wrinkles out. And then you've got some recycled ribbon that you can use year after year. And you'll have different ribbon every year because you're using the ribbons that were attached to the packages you got from other people. Now, my sister used this really pretty rose and gold ribbon. I just took an empty spool that I had from our buffalo check ribbon that we just used, and I'm going to take that ribbon and wrap it right around that spool, and now it's like I have a brand new spool of ribbon. So I know everybody usually recycles their gift bags, but I thought this one was special because it was from my niece to my mom, 2 years ago. But this was from another viral video that I saw, and I thought it was brilliant. But if you just take the handles from your gift bag and poke them into the other side like I'm doing here, you can pull the bag closed and everything inside will stay snug as a bug in a rug. But my handles on my snowflake bag didn't have these little thingies at the end like some of the bags do. But just to show you exactly how it's going to work, you're just going to feed it into the other side and then pull the handles and it closes your bag up. Now the bag that I'm going to be using, it has a ribbon handle and it doesn't have those little attachments there. So you can still do it. You would just have to undo the knots and then re-knot it once you put it in there. So I did it with this bag, but the ribbons were a little short, so I did it before I put my gift inside. And I didn't realize I wasn't going to be able to put it in. So if you don't want to change the handles, just make sure that you put your gift in before you do this. But it would also mean that you can't get the gift out. So I'm going to have to make longer handles, and I'll use some Dollar Tree ribbon and then feed it from one side into the other, and then knot them on the outsides, and then do the same thing going the other way. And so you'll still be able to pull them closed, but at the same time you'll be able to open them back up so that you can get the gift out. And then again, to embellish this, because it's snowflakes, I'm really in the mood for snowflakes for some reason. I'm going to feed some ribbon into a Dollar Tree ornament and attach that to the side of my bag. So now for this one, I'm going to use a Dollar Tree rug, and I'm going to put it where the back side is facing up, so you can tell by the seams, and there's also a tag on there. I'm going to fold this in half long ways. No, that would be short ways. And then I'm going to make sure that it's super flat and even on both sides, and then I'm going to hot glue both of my sides all the way from the very bottom to where the fringe starts. And I'm using my HOTO glue gun. I will have this linked in the description box below. And then once I get those sides closed up, I'm going to stick my hand in and push that corner out so it makes a point. And I'm going to fold that point up and then hot glue that. I just went all over and put quite a bit of glue. You could sew this also, but I'll do this on both sides, so I'm giving my little bag, well, it's turning into a bag. But once I get those corners folded up and glued, I'm going to turn my bag inside out, and then there's going to be a little opening on the outside, so I'm just going to tuck that in, and it's really already tucked in. I'm just going to close it up and use some more hot glue. So now I have a rectangular bottom on my bag. Now, if you had a box that was this size, that would be neat, because you could just stick it in there and it would stand up by itself. But this is going to hold some gifts, and the gift that I have is kind of this shape, but you'll see in just a second. So I'm going to take some Dollar Tree nautical rope, and I'm not going to glue down that flap that I just turned down, you know, with the fringe. I'm going to just leave it the way it is, and then I'm going to put my nautical rope around that, and then I'm going to poke my gifts into the little bag and then tie that into a bow. Now these are already wrapped, because the other gifts that I was showing you, those weren't wrapped yet, because those were for my grandbabies who don't watch my videos. But my niece does, and this is for her, so I had to make sure that she didn't know what she was going to be getting. So once I get those tucked in, I'm going to take that rope and make that into a knot. And I didn't want to cut the rope off, because, you know, it gets all fringy and frayed. So I'm just going to leave it long like that, which I think is super cute. And then I'm going to take some tulle and make a, well, I guess this would be a super perky bow. If you can't make bows, tulle or mesh is always the way to go, because it just automatically puffs out and is all nice and perky. So there's no skill involved for anyone that says they can't make bows. So I'll take a piece of chenille stem and then again spread those out and then tape it to the top of the gift, and it's done. And here's how this one turned out, and my niece Karis can use the bag for whatever she wants. I hope you guys found something useful in this video, and if you did, please give it a thumbs up, and you can even save it for next year if you're already done this year, or any gift giving time in the future. I want to wish everyone a very Merry Christmas as you celebrate the birth of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, and remember all the gifts He's given us. Love on your family, help others who have lost a loved one or are in need. I pray everyone has a blessed day, and remember to always be the light. Bye.